yes, it was very, very, very intentional because, as we've all said here, nothing beats community. Now, while that has been of benefit to everybody in that community, both online and offline, I've also benefited from having a community because somehow they become your moving billboards. They walk into a space and say, oh, have you heard of Abuja City Tourist? These are spaces that you might not even find yourself, but someone is just sitting there talking about you just based off the fact that, you know, they feel like they belong to your community. Something very interesting happened recently. I was in a meeting and an older woman, this was just last week, at the Hilton actually, an older woman approached me and she was like, I know you. I was like, I'm very sure I don't know you, but I couldn't say that. And so I was like, yeah, I know you. And then I looked at her and she said something that hit me. She said, the reason why I feel like I'm a part of your community is how relatable and realistic your platform is. And for me, that was a turning point because, like I said, when we started, when Abuja City Story started, that was the only thing that was on my mind. And now when you talk about legacy, a long-term plan, being in Nigeria is a very interesting thing. Being in Nigeria is a very interesting thing. You want to plan, but are you really planning at the end of the day? But we hope for the best. But I would say that I like when she said, Remy Osifo, influencer. I want to correct that. I'm a tour guide. So we've moved from influencing to impact now. So when we started, it was probably just influencing, showing people around, telling you what to do. Now we actually make sure that we take people on those experiences. And there was a change in systems after COVID. During COVID, we found that a lot of creators were coming together and putting out content, making sure that people were aware of places that they had visited before COVID. Now, people were waiting patiently. Once COVID was over, they started going to these places. Now, why did I say we've moved from influencing to impact? Abuja businesses, I know for sure, felt the impact of COVID. But when people came out of that, they then realized there were places they had never been to, never explored, which also, I'm 100% sure, made these businesses make profits because people started storming and, you know, going to these places and were fully aware that they needed to be in these places. Now, we've gotten to a point where we've expanded, and we want to tell the Nigerian story. We want to talk about Abuja, but we also now want to talk about Africa. Because when we started, there was something that I was very sure about. I did not like the mainstream media narrative of my country. When you Google pictures, those questions for children. It hurt my soul, and I was very determined to showcase the beauty of this country, and we're still doing that. But now, we are looking to expand to Africa. So last year, we started going to African countries and telling the stories, these stories, and making sure that people also see Africa. So for now, that's our long-term plan.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Do we have time for audience Q&A? 5 minutes for audience Q&A. All right. So we're going to, if you have any questions, I think, what's the arrangement? They just raise their hand and then we'll ask the question. But before we come to you, I want you guys to answer this in 1 minute each. I'm going to time you 1 minute each. And this is a question on evolutions, right? What systems and technologies do you think will impact the creator economy, and how should we be thinking about them? So we're talking about systems and technologies that will impact the creator economy and how we should be thinking about them. 1 minute. Chuka, you can go.
I think what will impact the creator economy, guaranteed, is consistent evolution of tech and human needs. Right. Is going to continuously change. We went from, in 20 years, we went from a 100 or 200 gigabyte hard drive being something that sits on your table, to having 2 terabyte flash drives. And it's not going to stop. Right. It will continue. So tech will continuously impact. The needs of people will continuously increase and change. And in all these things, you will need to communicate to people. You need to tell them, one, that you have the answer to their need. You need to tell them that it's okay to have a need. You need to tell them that it's okay to fail as much as it's okay to succeed. Whoever is conversing with them at their heart, regardless of what changes around them, is going to be the winner. Because everything will continuously change. But human beings will exist. And their need for validation, confirmation, help, and community will never change.
Thank you very much. I wish I could recommend some things, but let's go. Remy.
I'd say for sure that tech, we already have tech, but I think as an individual, I would want to talk from the individualistic aspect. People need to understand that you have to not sit in a place. You have to evolve. If you don't evolve, nothing is happening. Evolving is the only way that you can bring about the change that you desire. I feel like when I started Abuja City Choice, there was nothing like that. Now, it's turned into a brand that has helped other people see the need in promoting local tourism. So I for sure would just say, learn to evolve, learn to look at the market, learn to see what's obtainable, but don't also be afraid to do something that is different.
True.
That's it.
Thank you very much. Freddie.
All right, so Chuka nailed it when he said we have to evolve. I think we must evolve faster than the pace of technology to be able to stay ahead of the game. But what is most important that will add to what has been said is the type of education that can support adoption of innovation. I fundamentally think when we say creators economy, we're talking about all of us here. Because if we're all made in the image and likeness of God, and God is a creator, fundamentally, it means we are all creators at different levels. We need a new definition of creativity that can expand to accommodate the different ways we can create. Because creativity is not one way, is not one thing. So, but we also need a curriculum that can put curiosity and experimentation at the front and center, particularly for our kids. We should stop punishing failure and see it as a recipe for discovery. We must always reward ourselves. Even as a startup, I have failed more times than most entrepreneurs I know. But at the end of the day, every failure leads us to a discovery that makes us even stronger as a company. I also think that the ability to localize, which is that you as a local company must find ways to exist in different parts of the world. In looking for funding, you might not find it in Nigeria, but you can find it in Silicon Valley. Then you must be a Silicon Valley, right, company to be able to attract that. But by any means, survive and thrive.
Thank you very much. Mika.
Okay, so I think I'm glad I'm speaking last. So two things, you said technology and system. And I think that technology and system is the mind. I think that's all there is to it. That is what needs to open up, you know, because the guys that use this technology, that make them, don't use them, in case you don't know. The developers and everybody that program these things, the phones and everything, they don't use them to do any of these creative things that you use them to do. So they just keep creating these things, and you're going to have to catch up with them, you know. And the term creator economy is also not new. You know, we keep buzzing it around like it just started yesterday. No, it's always been there since people started writing books, since people started doing movies and all sorts of things. It's just that now it's in your hands. So I think it's the mind that needs to evolve. That's the system, and that's the technology that needs to evolve. That is what the guys in the West have that we don't have. And that is what we need to use to tell our stories, or to choose what stories to tell. Otherwise, there's nothing to do.
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together for the panel. Do we have any questions? Okay, my friend. So one, you just take your number 1, 2, anyone else? Going. All right, so 2 of them. Just look at you. All right, 3. Start with you, please. So you just, your name and who your question is directed at. Can we get a mic in the audience? Thank you. So your name, who your question is directed at, and your question. Very quickly.
I'm Chijoke Otiba, and just like the other time, I didn't talk about what I do. It's related to the question, and that's what why I want to mention. I am a life coach, a writer, a public speaker, I train corporately, and I recently stumbled into MCing, and I'm loving it. And you raised something about health. I'm also a health practitioner. I'm a physiotherapist currently interning at the National Hospital. So almost all of my life, I've had people who try to, like these things I mentioned are like a summary of what I do. There are a lot. I've had people always trying to discourage me that, look, you can never succeed if you don't do just one thing. And this is an issue in the creative space in the industry. You see a lot of young people who are coming up, they are telling them, a lot of gurus out there, mentors, coaches, whatever, you cannot succeed if you don't do graphics design. Pick graphics design and stick to it and die there, you know. And here he is, and he is talking about his own transition, how he was able to make a lot of wonderful stuff from the different things he had experienced. And here she is talking about, you know, evolution. And just when I thought it was it all, here he is talking about rapid evolution. That's like a faster evolution. So I want to know, I want to ask, somehow I'm asking the three, but basically him, how are you able to marry these things? What is your advice to the younger generation? How should they cope with that multiple abilities or multiple potentials or interests to actually create more value and demand? Thank you very much.
Okay, so you need to understand that because we went from the industrial age to the information age, right? There was a huge change. So people you are speaking to were people who all they could get in terms of life when it comes to their work was a monolithic career. So you would see that in their time, one person will work for 40 years in one company. They forget 1 year, forget 40 years in the same career, in the same company. So you finish and get your pension. That was the nature of work. They would even get offers from other people to work the same work they're doing for a higher price. They're not going anywhere. Loyalty was key. When I left my first job, my first full-time job, I worked after a year. This company and they offered me 3 times. Now remember that this is a man who was from that era, but he was reading a book that was modern, and he aesthetic something and showed it to me. And it said, this industry rewards mobility over loyalty. When I read it, I know that it said, and I left and I resigned. So there's a shift, and you are getting advice from people who did not understand or do not understand that shift. So they can only give, it is well-intentioned advice, but it is based on experience, not on present reality. The present reality is, because I've had a lot of people ask me these things about, the present reality is that the most advantageous people are the ones who are multifaceted. Even in football, those who before used to have 11 positions, every position was strict except the number 10.